Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. I know everybody is busy. You have a lot going on, and I appreciate your sacrificing some of your time this afternoon for this important meeting that we've got going here. We're going to make you a promise to get you out within an hour. We want to respect everybody's time. There may be more to be said than we can contain in an hour, but we'll do something different, either email something out or schedule something out, but we'll try to do it within an hour. We haven't met in several weeks, but there's been a lot of activity going on behind the scenes, and we are glad to have Houston Matthews of Croy, and they're going to come up and talk about what's been going on, and they have some questions for us, I think, and this is a great opportunity for us to start some very productive back and forth discussions. Everybody should have an agenda. If you don't, raise your hand and we'll get you a copy of one. But so I'm going to go ahead and turn that over to Houston.
Thank you, Commissioner, and welcome everybody. Thanks for having us. We're excited to be here in our first steering committee meeting. Just to give you a quick rundown, I'm just going to run down what we have on the agenda. I won't be presenting a lot of the detailed information. I'm going to introduce our teammates who were the same ones on our initial meeting. Ethan Green is here live in person, so he's going to brief us on a few components of the agenda. Dan Dobry is online in our Marietta office, and he's got some talking points in the agenda as well. But again, thanks a lot. We're excited to begin. We have begun in a lot of different ways. The Commissioner has worked very hard in helping us obtain a lot of the initial data that's needed to produce and begin our study and our efforts. So we've probably had a lot of emails back and forth of what all that we need. So we've received a data package really from you, from the Commissioner. We've reviewed that information. We've been back to him about some clarification, some additional information that we need, some information that was provided that we need in some different formats. Ethan's going to tell us a little bit more about some of the details of that and our data collection status here in just a second. Dan's going to talk to you a little bit about public engagement. Now that we're beginning our process, I wouldn't say that the end is in sight, but we do have a schedule in place. We have an idea for a schedule, and we need you to begin thinking about public engagement, how public engagement works, how you want to manage public engagement, what involvement you need, if any, from us. How do we get the word out to the public to solicit the correct information that's going to be helpful to you and to us to put into the plan about Lincoln County. So Dan's going to brief us a little bit on that. Ethan's crafted a comprehensive plan vision statement that we're going to review. This is a draft on our part. We wanted to get it to you. The text of that is included in the agenda. So just read over that when you can, and we'll talk about it a little bit and get some comments from you on our vision statement that we produced. The next item is going to be the SWOT analysis, the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats analysis. Some of this will be rolled into public engagement. There's a public engagement component of that analysis, but it's now's the time to have the early parts of those conversations on assessing strengths and weaknesses, because that's a critical component of our comprehensive plan. And then lastly, just our steering committee meeting schedule. How often would you like to meet? Our process is somewhere in the order of 10 to 12 months. Do you want to meet monthly? Is this an appropriate format? Et cetera, et cetera. So that'll conclude our meeting, and hopefully we'll get at least have an idea of the next date in mind at that time. So we'll have a date in place, or a general date in place, and then we'll walk away with some action items. And I didn't put it on the agenda, but certainly after that and at any point, feel free to start a conversation, ask a question, just shout out, and we can have some discussion at the end, just generally if there's something that we need to discuss today among the steering committee that we need to hear, if we know that we need, it comes up during the meeting. So again, thanks for having us here, and I'm going to turn it over to Ethan to talk about data collection.
Good afternoon, everybody. Nice to see you all in person. I'm not sure if our camera was even on last time we had our virtual meeting, so Ethan Green, put a name to a face, excited to be here. Thanks for having us. I'm going to do just a little overview before I turn it over to Dan for public engagement on data collection. I think that Daniel has gotten a little taste of how running around and trying to touch base with a dozen different people for a dozen different things is not always as easy as it looks, but we are in a good place. So we're doing sort of a 4 broad topics in this plan, touching on housing, land use and zoning. That housing is also community development, utilities and transportation. I have everything I need in perfect condition, cleaned, ready to go for land use and zoning. 100% there, which is great. Housing and community development, I have all of the data I need. Some of it I'm going to have to sort of reformat, but I've got everything together and ready to go so that we're going to be able to start moving forward on that section. Utilities have some great mapping information, so thank you for whoever put that together for sewer, water, electric, gas, telecommunications. Was great. We are missing a couple things, and so whoever is in charge of that, you can make a note of this and email me or email Daniel or come speak to me after the meeting, whatever. I have map of all of the sewer in the county and then all of the water pipes in the county. I would love to know where the start and stop services are for those, so where the utility is comfortable with new development. It looked to me as if all of the sewer is inside the city, so the city limits seems to be that boundary. But there is some water service that looks like it goes out of those boundaries. So just knowing exactly where that cutoff is in terms of the utility and new development. And then I am looking for a peak and average flow number for sewer and water. So if you've got those, that's just going to help us calculate capacity and understand sort of how much development the county can handle and the utility can handle before you're looking at investing in new infrastructure. Lastly, we have transportation. It is sort of where the biggest gap is. I have a PDF of all of the road names and their status, their level, which is great. That's the information I need. And then I have a map of all of the roads with no information behind them, just lines on a sort of on a page. And if there's some way that I can get both of those together so I can look at the line on the road and know what the name is and how wide it is or what its classification is, that would be excellent. Right now, it's sort of difficult for me to do any sort of capacity analysis or safety analysis or development expansion without being able to merge those two together.
So, Tim, I don't know, do you have any of that data, or would the state have it, or if it doesn't exist?
If it doesn't exist, we could.
I can get a map from the state that shows all the county roads and their names on that. Of course, we've got a road list that's got the links and intersections.
Right.
And all that stuff.
But is there a way to show what we have on the road list, on a digital map? Is there any way to kind of link those two together?
Would Ernie know about that?
Ernie would be able to do that.
Okay, so
GIS specialist.
yeah, that's the GIS data. That's exactly who I need to talk to. So that's great. That's why I'm here.
Yes, is functional classification included in that data set as well, or does that come from
Probably a
separate
question
source?
for Ernie.
What are you talking about, like capacity,
What-
2 lanes?
Well, whether it's a local road, an arterial, a minor collector, major collector, et cetera, et cetera.
Do you think Ernie would have that?
I doubt, he might.
Okay.
So yeah, we'll just figure out what he's got, and then that'll set sort of our limitations on we have to deal with what we've got, obviously. So
So back to your other point about I guess where the peak water flow, is that what you were talking about? I don't know whether y'all have that information, or I can give,
yep.
and I can put put you in contact with them.
Great. And that should, yeah, so for utilities, we're about 95% of the way there. Just a confirmation that sewer is within city limits, and then the boundaries of water, and then that peak flow, so.
You're talking about boundaries of the city, water goes outside the city?
Well, I have a,
You're asking?
so I have I have a map that shows all of our water pipes.
Your service area.
Yeah, service area, yep. And so there's some water, it looks like on my map, that goes outside of Fayetteville city limits. So there is some service to the county, so I just want to know, you know, if a new developer came to town and said, I'm going to build 25 houses in a new subdivision, I want water. Where is he going to be able to get it, and where is he not going to be able to get it? Or, you know, how far are you able to go outside of the city? What's your service area?
And you want the flow on the distribution lines, not just at the plant?
Yeah, peak flow, yeah, and then average, just so we know if you are adding new housing, how much can the water utility handle before you're looking at, you know, having at max capacity, basically, for your current infrastructure. And that's the status update
There
on.
is sewer that runs outside the city.
So okay.
It's one leg.
One leg, one line. So yeah, so all I'm asking for is the service area, not necessarily what's current, because I have the map of everything that exists, but what the utility district's willing to assume. So, you know, looking 20 years down the road, if we've got new development or new housing, what are they gonna agree to service, and what's gonna end up on well or on septic? And so that's all I need for utilities. We're there on housing, we're there on land use, we're there on community development, we're there on zoning. I will speak to Ernie and GIS for transportation, and that is going to be your data collection update. But that sets us up to be in a good place for our next meeting. If we were looking a month ahead, and we don't have to, that's gonna put us sort of near 4th of July, so probably about a month and a half at earliest. We'll have a rough draft of that for you all to review, and we'll be able to start moving into that strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats conversation, which we'll get into later. But right now, I'm going to turn it over to Dan to talk to you a little bit about public engagement. Dan?
Okay, thanks, Ethan. And I do apologize, I couldn't make the trip today for the steering committee meeting. I'm ultimately looking forward to meeting everyone, be helping to assist in advancing the comprehensive plan. As you know, the public engagement portion is very, very important, because ultimately it's your constituents that are the beneficiaries of a strategic plan. So one of the things that we would like to do with being able to keep information current, so anyone can be accessed to see what the status is, then we do want to host the project website on the county's website. It would be a page on the county's website. So who we would coordinate that with will be an important piece of information. And it's also our intention that whatever content would be placed on the webpage for the project, that the steering committee would have an opportunity to review and comment. For example, the existing conditions analysis that Ethan will produce, we'll ask for your review before that goes on the website. When using that information and input from you with regards to the vision statement and the SWOT analysis, that will help us develop questions for a survey. We've been very comfortable using the SurveyMonkey platform, so we would recommend that would be what we would use for the Lincoln County comp plan. Before the question would be posted as part of the survey, again, we would come to the steering committee to get your input and feedback before we would go live. Typically a 2 to 3 week process or open period to get information would be what we would recommend to input them to help us with looking towards the future.
Hey, Dan, this is Daniel Eldridge. I will tell you that we do have a webpage already that has been stood up. It's off of our planning commission page, Lincoln
Okay.
County Planning Commission. So we have, you know, it's not very mature, but we have something out there. So that would be the platform that you could use.
Suits, I will have make sure I look at that when I have a chance, either right after the meeting or during the meeting. So thank you for that. So an important role that we would ask the steering committee to play with this, to participate in this, would be when we have updated information, when we will be posting the survey, is for you to reach out to your constituents, asking them, you know, for their input, encouraging them, and encouraging their neighbors and friends to also give their input. The more input we receive, the better we'll be able to help assist in developing that future vision that you have for Lincoln County. We do have anticipated in the agreement for a public meeting open house. What we would ask, and our experience is, we get better response and better input if we go where people are, as opposed to identifying a central location, advertising, and hoping people will stop by to talk to us and share their thoughts and ideas. So one of the things that we would ask for the steering committee is their thoughts on what will be a very well-attended community event where we would be a presence and engage folks as they're enjoying themselves to get their input into the comprehensive plan. So that we feel will be much more successful to garner input, and we would appreciate your thoughts and ideas as to what might be the best opportunity to engage the public on their turf, to get their feedback on the plan. And then the last thing we would, to get the word out so that people would, know about the planning commission page, to stay current with the project, is the utilization of your social media to get the word out, to keep people current with as things are progressing, so that everyone feels that they have every opportunity to participate in the future of the county. So there's a couple things that we need from you, and we'll be following up with regards to getting the word out, collecting the public's feedback, and then incorporating that into the comprehensive plan. So, does anyone have any questions for me so far with how we're going to address the public engagement?
When do you need to have that identified? Time, place?
If the committee could share their thoughts with us, and that's one of the things that it's actually at the very end of the agenda that we produced is the communication protocol. Houston is our central point of contact. We would be going through him, so we're not sure, how the committee is going to function with funneling their information, through the collective group to him, so that we have consensus and agreement on how things should proceed. So I'm not sure on the steering committee's end, but working through Houston so that we have that central point of contact from our side would be helpful with keeping the communication flowing smooth.
Is that something you want us to discuss now?
Can I speak to that?
Yeah, sure. And my only thought was, really, I think, Commissioner, it's up to you and up to the committee whether we want to continue the same way we have been communicating. So, for example, when we have a draft survey or, have a draft agenda for public meetings, et cetera, that the steering committee may host, does that need to come from me to you and you distribute out and back, or is there another smaller group or another person that wants to be the public engagement, liaison to the steering committee? But, however the committee wants to do that is fine with us. I'm gonna serve as will serve as the point of contact for our side. So, we'll communicate that way, but it's really however is most effective to you, because over the process, you're going to have information that is going to communicate back to us, and likewise too, as we start to generate some of the thoughts and ideas and agendas and questions and that sort of thing.
I mean, I don't mind distributing information for our group. I don't really done it so far.
I can communicate to the public through Main Street, Central Miami, we have a huge reach.
I'll speak a little bit more directly to your question. Based on our proposal, and we are happy to move this around or change it, depending on what you all think or what you want. We had proposed our in-person public outreach come after we have completed a draft of our SWOT analysis and before we do recommendations, to sort of get a feeling of, what do they agree with what we've identified as strengths in the county and weaknesses in the county? Do they like the opportunities that we've identified? Do they have others that we've missed? So that's sort of the stuff that we would be looking on feedback for, so that we can incorporate that and build it into our recommendations. So we are looking at a point after the SWOT analysis has been done, which means we've got a next meeting for about a month to 8 weeks for existing conditions, and then the meeting after that to give you all time to review the draft of SWOT analysis. So we're looking at sometime in early fall, most likely. And if we want to move that public meeting to after recommendations have been done, we can do that if we want to delay. But I'll just give you sort of an example of what we mean when we say go to where people are. Before I came to Croy, I was at the Memphis MPO. So we were a 4-county, 2 in Mississippi, 2 in Tennessee, area that had over 1 million people in it. And we were doing 2 plans concurrently. One was our long-range transportation plan, which is a vision out to 2055, which we get a bunch of federal money for. It's a huge endeavor. We spend a lot of time on advertising, a lot of time trying to get people to come show up. And what we did with that public engagement was pick, city halls in these 4 counties. And from 6 to 8, we'd go show up at a city hall and hope people showed up on a Wednesday night. And then we were also doing a safety plan, which we did in-house. So we didn't spend money on consultants. We did it with the few amount of man hours that we had left over from the other projects we were running on. And we didn't have any sort of federal grant money to do it. And we picked farmers markets, little music on the lawn evenings that people will come to in town squares, or food truck Thursdays. And we got more participation and more input for our safety plan than we did for our long-range plan, just because we went to where people were already gathered as a community, rather than hoping that somebody would drive out to a city hall, deal with childcare. If they're working on a 3rd shift, they're not going to make it, etc. So that's the sort of stuff that we're looking for. I don't know if you've got, big 4-H or Lions Club, or if you've got your own music on the lawn, but those are the sort of things that we want you all who would know about it to tell us, so that we can engage people in the most effective way possible.
So we have first Saturdays, an outdoor market on our square, April through October. So if you're wanting like early fall, like September, October would be great. In May, we had close to 4,500 people attend, and we gathered that through AI data. 90% of those live in Lincoln County in the city limits. Say 75% of those are from the Park City area. We have a heat map that will show you where those people come from. So I think that would be ideal.
Right, and so I'm assuming that's the first Saturday of each month?
Yeah, so October 5th will be the last one.
Yeah, okay. So that is a great thing when we move into our sort of steering committee meeting schedule and timeline to keep in mind as a September 1 or more likely October 1 sort of goal for that public engagement. And the sooner we can set that in stone and start telling people and letting them know and get that on social media, the better.
Lincoln County Fair,
That's what
yeah,
I
an
was gonna say,
opportunity,
the fair's
that's
gonna bring,
mid-September.
the fair's gonna bring
Yeah, thousands of people there. A lot of them are
thousands and
not,
thousands.
a lot of them are outside the county.
for 7 straight days. So,
That's huge.
Yeah,
Tens of thousands.
yeah.
and lots of that is sitting and watching events, so easier to grab people.
Right.
Stop them.
Yeah,
walking
that-
by.
that's sort of what we're
They're sitting
thinking.
down, they're trapped.
Right, that's, yeah, we typically do little pop-up or swing by where you have, you know, your 10 by 10 tent and table, and we'll prepare some posters that have some maps or data or infographics on, and we do a little, 5 minutes of here's what we've learned and what we're doing and why we're doing it. Now, can you give us some information, put some dots on a map of where, your favorite places to spend time in Lincoln County, or where's an area where you felt like this is unsafe or dangerous, or where you could see some investment really turn it around. And even though we're only scheduled for 1 day, there's nothing stopping you all from, we're saying, here's what we did for our exercise, we'll do it day 1, and then you all can run that event each day. So that
We'll put Ethan in the dunking booth.
there you go. I'd be fine with it.
We have a exhibit building, and the chamber has a booth there that you're welcome to use, and then we have it manned, so.
Yeah.
That's a designated location, and we can announce from the grandstands, trying to, in case they didn't see it online, in case they
Yeah.
didn't see it wherever we plan,
I think maybe the
along the
last-
fair board, we can announce, say, hey, now's the time, we got break-in events, go get in the AC, go see the chamber booth, and that could be usually beneficial to several reasons.
And we'll be planning on preparing a sort of concurrent digital survey to run with this. So on, if we do it on one of the fair days, and then you all run it for the rest of the fair, and we still want to capture the audience that shows up on first Saturday, we can have QR codes and little, business cards to hand out. So you stop by, use the same materials that we've prepared, and say, hey, we take 2 minutes to fill out this online survey, and even if they don't have time right there, they've got it in their pockets, just to really try and churn out as much engagement as we possibly can.
And also, if you have that, if you have the access to have the QR code, then it opens it wide open for small businesses.
Right, yeah. Yeah,
It opens it up for even more.
So, yeah, if we've got the chamber involved, then you just have those cards that you distribute to participating businesses, and they can put it by their registers, and, we try and stretch it as far as we can with our resources. Do we have any other questions on that before we move on to the vision statement? All right, great. So we've dealt with homework number 1, which is to sort of dwell on, consider public engagement. Homework number 2 is our vision statement. We've prepared a draft that's attached here. This is sort of a guiding idea, central thesis, motto to sort of steer both the committee and the way that this plan is done, a central idea. This is a first crack at it, so what we want is for you all to review this, and between now and the next time that we meet, send your thoughts to Daniel. Hey, I really like this line, or this doesn't really look like what I imagine this plan should be, and he'll collect those and then send it on to Houston, and that will sort of distribute it to the rest of the team that's working on this, so that we can revise and resubmit a draft that aligns more closely to what you all had envisioned. But we wanted to give something sort of as a starting point here, just to start a conversation. If you have questions or concerns, it's something to talk about or to think on, rather than to say, hey, what do you want for a vision statement, and get 47 ideas that are tough to merge together. So we can take questions on on that right now, but this is sort of something that you have plenty of time over the next month or so to think about and give us your feedback. And you're, again, because you're welcome to take this to active stakeholders, so you can take it and share it with the rest of your chamber or whoever you feel like you want to solicit input from before you send it back to us.
And Ethan, note too that I put it in the agenda, but this is the first time that the steering committee has sent it. You and I emailed it back and forth, but I didn't get it to the commissioner in time ahead of this meeting. So the text, and that's why I added to the agenda. The text in the agenda is the first time it's been distributed. To
Right.
the steering committee.
So we'll put this in a document as well, digital, that you can go through and make your own changes and comments. Unless we have any other questions, we'll move on to SWAT. Dan, do you want to take this? Or do you want me to take it?
Ethan, why don't you lead and I'll support.
Okay, sounds great. So that's homework item number 1 is public engagement. Homework item number 2 is vision statement. Our third and I believe final homework item for our next meeting is the SWOT analysis. So what we're going to do is over the next 6 weeks or so, I'll put together the existing conditions report. And I'm taking all of the data that you all have given us and compiling it, creating maps showing how the county exists today in terms of its community, its housing, its transportation, its utilities, its development pattern, and we will use that as the basis to develop its strengths and weaknesses, its opportunities and its threats. And then we'll kind of dig deeper into that, say not just what is existing, but what could exist. Where are our great opportunities? What are some problems that have plagued the county that we've struggled with, dealing with? Who are we competing with? Is there stagnation? Is there opportunity for growth? And so I can do that. I can get a bunch of data and sit down at my computer in Chattanooga and never set foot in Lincoln County and prepare a document that says, here are your strengths and weaknesses. Or I can go to people who have, grown up, lived, worked, planted roots, really invested their time, their money into this county and making this community what it is, and say, I'm going to take it from you all. What are your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities? And then based on the input you provide, I will sort of take that and intertwine it with the existing data and put that together so we can take it to the public and get even more input and feedback. So the third thing that we want you to think about, which is a little bit more nebulous, we don't have a statement or a draft for you to look at and give us feedback. This is just completely wide open. I got here a little early today and stopped in a few stores around the square. And I told a couple of folks while I was here, and it did not take a lot of prodding to get a lot of very open and honest thoughts about some of the weaknesses that the county faces and some of the strengths. I moved here, and I moved here because da-da-da-da-da, and I love Lincoln County, and I love Fayetteville, but, what's really bothered me is da-da. So, there are your strengths and your weaknesses and so that's the sort of information that I would love to get without trying to put any stipulations on it or priming anybody to give me. I don't want them to think I'm looking for something. I don't want your pitch. I want what honestly makes you love this place and what honestly drives you up a wall. So that is homework for our next meeting as well. Dan, if you have anything to add to that, I'll turn it over to you.
No, I think you did a good job. And I think the key that you said, it was an honest assessment. That's the input that we can help to articulate those thoughts so that ultimately the decision makers with adopting the plan will have that guidebook to get Lincoln County to continue to move in a direction that good folks would like to see it, so that in fact they are, with that investment, a great place to call home. So, no, you did a very good job.
And with that, we've got a few housekeeping issues in terms of meeting schedule, next meeting, and communications, and I'm going to let Houston take care of that. So I'll turn it back over to him. Thank you all.
Before we close the door completely on the SWOT analysis, I'm just really going to, does the committee, the commissioner have any questions, thoughts? I mean, it's a pretty broad topic. Do you, and maybe this is a question for Dan, this is sort of like internal engagement, not public engagement, but, would it be helpful if we crafted just a one-page, something that the committee members could fill out and get back to us, or do you just want to take information from wherever you get it? And this may be a question for Dan too, or to Ethan. What may work best?
Broader than this steering committee, I'm assuming, or I mean, we could all provide input, I guess. Or do you want it to go?
I wouldn't open it up to the public. If there are people in the steering committee they would like to turn to and ask outside of just themselves, that's totally fine. But our public engagement comes right after our first draft of that, so we will essentially be opening up the SWOT analysis to the public as well. They're just gonna have a little bit more information, because stopping somebody and saying, hey, in 5 minutes, give me your open and honest opinion of everything that's great and bad about this county is just a little bit much and overwhelming. So we're gonna try and take a first stab at it with sort of the stakeholders here. And so I'm not gonna say you have to close it off and it doesn't leave this room or anything, but I wouldn't send it out to social media and open it up to the public.
Right.
I mean, I can send something out to this group plus the full planning commission and county commission.
Yeah, well, I'm happy to. I'll put together a one-pager, something that you can fill out, or questions or prompts.
Let's do that.
And if you want to use it, take it and use it. And if you want to give it back in some other format, we're not going to turn that away. We're not going to say you have to use it, but if you want to start a place, we can provide that.
Do you anticipate that the data you're collecting will help build the foundation for a starting point, or no?
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of what I'm.
Right. Yeah, absolutely it would.
Obviously, there's other superfluous things that people aren't people's hearts, but
Right.
from an infrastructure perspective.
So I'll give you an example. Thinking about transportation, I'm collecting crash data over the last 5 years. So I'll be able to see all the places that car wrecks have occurred, all of the places that those car wrecks were serious, all of the places those car wrecks were fatal, all of the places that those car wrecks involved people who were walking or people who were biking. You'll be able to take that information and kind of develop your thoughts on, hey, this is where I feel safe when I drive, or I'd love for my kids to be able to walk to school, but this road makes that a huge conflict. And so that data may help guide something like that. And then the same is going to be true for housing and community development and zoning. If you run into zoning issues, I'll collect all that data and make it available for sure.
So you guys will develop a form or whatever, and then I'll make sure everybody gets a copy of the planning commission, county commission, and then they
Great.
get that back to me, and I'll forward it to you.
Yeah, and we're going to do the same thing with the vision statement. So you'll get something from us on that you can distribute and mark up. And I had made a note too that we'll kind of put together and have some discussions about the framework of public engagement. So we'll create a one-pager on public engagement strategy that would help to give some direction and definition to how we may go about that with the fair and the other items, and how we may do digitally and a survey, that sort of thing. So that's all homework on our side that we'll distribute back to you. Okay, really, before we get into just general discussion, if there is any meeting schedule, I think we would propose to meet maybe mid-July-ish and review the remaining data that we've received, the beginnings of our review of that data and existing conditions, and review of some of your input over that time in SWOT analysis, vision statement comments, and public engagement strategies. It's completely up to you. but that's what we would propose, and if that works, we can work with Daniel and schedule a meeting and work with FPU if we're have the ability to meet here again. It seems to work pretty well, but again, give us some input or give the commissioner some input on, is this a helpful time? Does it interfere with your day? Should we do it later in the evening, et cetera, et cetera? We're, of course, completely flexible, so.
What are your thoughts on the? How about July the 17th? It's right in the middle, it's a Wednesday. Do these Wednesdays work? I mean, Britt, you guys are gracious enough to provide the facility. Is that something that we could be able to impose upon you again? Does 1 o'clock this time work for everybody?
Let's make that tentative, and you and I will coordinate, and we'll firm that up in the next day or two.
Yeah, that would be
What about the 24th? 24th,
Okay. So tentative date, July 24, 1 p.m. here. And, yes, sir.
On the SWOT analysis, just so I'm clear, so really the survey you're gonna send out is gonna talk, or we will address our strengths and weaknesses, and from that, you identify opportunities and threats from those, or the one page that you're gonna draw up will ask questions pertaining to all 4 of those topics?
All 4.
Okay.
Is,
I got one question. Before we talk about utilities, is solid waste something we're addressing? I didn't hear that in.
Ethan, did you hear, solid waste is,
Well, I'm not a utilities expert. I would have, that is lumped in with sewer, is it not, or is that something totally different? Like, you're talking about trash? I don't know that we talked about trash. I don't know that it would be that difficult to add in. But it hasn't been on, any of my guidelines or documents. I haven't planned for it, I guess is the answer to that question, but that doesn't mean it can't be done.
let us have some discussions internally about that, and we'll queue up Dan and see how we may have addressed that in some.
We got a procedure to do it, but it's obvious to me it probably is Bruce too, and that way, we won't go back mad from the meeting, but agriculture was left out of our vision statement, and where it says, the county will be vigilant to promote industry and commerce. Agriculture needs to be in there, if it's gonna retain the way the county looks is, we can't squelch agriculture, and we've got to promote it.
Sure. Well, I've made a note of it, and we'll give that some thought. The last topic is just communication protocol. Is the current way that, and I know you may not have received a lot of information yet, but there's going to be some more coming. Is the communication protocol, from us through the commissioner to you, is that working for everybody? Is that acceptable? Is there any issues, anything we need to know about, anything we need to try to address to improve that? Again, we're completely open. Happy to take emails from everybody, but we also want to make sure that the entire committee is informed collectively with the same information. So
I'm going to interject this because on behalf of both of y'all, if it's in this room, send it to Daniel, and you do that, because I know what it's like to get information from 10 different people, and you gotta answer back and use half a day answering emails. So I would ask that it's something that needs to be done, that it be between Crowley Engineering and Daniel, please.
Second
Sure.
that.
It's working good.
Okay. Well, we're in the very beginning stages of it, so I'm glad to hear that. We're certainly able to change and redirect if there's something that's not working very efficiently. But if it's working for you, it's working for us. And again, don't feel free to, you can reach me by phone, text, email too. If there's just something small you need to ask, I'm happy to help to answer it. And I, of course, keep the commissioner informed. So that was all that we had on our agenda. I left out just general discussion really by accident, but it was certainly intended to have and entertain any questions and have any general discussion about the plan, the process, any components thereof. So I'll just open it up if there are any questions. Dan, Ethan, and I are happy to help to answer, and grab us at the end if you don't want to be recorded asking any questions. But again, thank you for having us, and again, fire away if there's any questions, comments, thoughts. Happy to.
What was your anticipated timeline for the strengths and weaknesses template?
So my initial thought process was to have a draft of existing conditions turned around for you all in advance of our next meeting, so you have time to read it over, and for you all to be able to present your thoughts on SWAT at our next meeting. So I'll get that one pager out relatively early, but you don't have to turn it around until next meeting or after next meeting, so you have some time.
We'll see something.
Right.
Correct.
So I heard three things: the public engagement piece for everybody to be kind of thinking about how we're going to go about doing that, the fairs, probably the leading contender, but there may be other things, QR codes, whatever. But be thinking about that, be willing to send back suggestions. The vision statement, everybody look at that and think on it and provide feedback on that. You're gonna have a form for that, right?
Yes.
Yes, sir. Yep.
Yeah, so I'll
We're gonna-
distribute that, you can make the edits and send it back to me and I'll get it to them. Same thing with the streets and the SWAT information. Once we get that form, I'll get it out to you. And the next meeting is tentatively scheduled for the 24th at 1 o'clock. I think we're getting some momentum here, gotta keep the communication going. And I appreciate the way Croy has always been very responsive. A couple of pieces of data that we'll work with you guys to kind of secure, make sure we get that to you, or get you an answer that we don't have that data. We
Sure.
might not even have it, but anything else?
What was
As-
the quickest the SWAT thing can be done? Because I don't know if we can legally do this, but one of the broadest spectrums of getting Lincoln County citizens is early voting. If there was something we had to hand out that they could get back to us, because you're gonna have voters there, and it's gonna be all areas of the county and age groups too that would be there. But I don't know if we can do it that quick, because that's only a month away.
When's early voting start for y'all? For, I guess that's for July. I'm not gonna make any promises on that. Dan and I might put our heads together and see if we can get a survey, or at least an early version of the survey put together to start collecting that data. That would be probably the best solution if we wanted to hand something out there. But I won't guarantee, because that's before we will have even met to discuss SWAT. So, you all as the committee would have to make the decision to release data to the public that you haven't had the chance to put your input into yet. And that just will be a decision that you have to make.
Well, there will still be early voting in the November election too, if we don't get it done.
I like that in QR.
Yeah.
Go online, do the survey.
And that will probably help for you to collect it all, that it's not handwritten.
Yep, it all goes
Then it's
to-
already in the correct format.
Yep.
Yep. 50 minutes, Commissioner. Less than an hour.
Thank you all. I appreciate
Thank you so
being
much.
here. We'll keep it moving.